when an officer's loyal dog suddenly began barking furiously at the casket during his funeral. Confusion spread through the mourners. No one could understand what was happening. The dog wouldn't stop, not even for a moment. His barks were frantic, his eyes filled with desperation, as if he had completely lost his mind. People whispered, glancing nervously at each other, trying to make sense of the chaos. Something was clearly wrong. Despite the police chief's firm objections, the growing unease left them with no choice. The casket had to be opened. It seemed to be the only way to calm the frantic canine. But when they finally lifted the lid, revealing what was inside, the crowd gasped in sheer horror. Music. The funeral of Officer Ethan Carter was a solemn event, attended by grieving family members, colleagues, and friends. Among them was Max, his devoted service dog and faithful companion. The dog, just as devastated as everyone else, lay silently by the graveside. His presence alone was enough to bring tears to many eyes. Ethan and Max had been inseparable since 2017, when Carter first joined the police force. His love for dogs had driven him to immediately request a position in the K-9 unit. That's how he was paired with Max, a courageous and highly trained service dog who had tragically lost his previous handler in a violent shootout with criminals. The loss had left Max withdrawn and uncooperative, and many officers believed he would never bond with another partner again. But Ethan was determined. He refused to give up, confident that he could win Max's trust. At first, their relationship was distant, almost cold. Max remained wary, keeping his guard up, but everything changed when they were sent on a critical mission to locate a missing person. During the search, Ethan's bravery seemed to earn the dog's respect. That night, for the first time, Max curled up at his new partner's feet. Ethan smiled, knowing at last that he had gained the dog's loyalty. From that moment on, they were an unstoppable team. Over the next year and a half, the duo cracked countless cases together, earning admiration from their peers. But their final mission, a dangerous operation to intercept a gang of ruthless robbers, took a devastating turn. The criminals outnumbered the officers, and they were heavily armed. The encounter erupted into a brutal shootout, bullets flying in every direction. Officers fell, wounded or worse. Ethan was gravely injured, losing an immense amount of blood before help could arrive. He was rushed to the hospital, along with several other officers, including one who was placed in an induced coma due to critical injuries. Despite desperate attempts to save him, the news spread. Ethan Carter had succumbed to his wounds. His colleagues mourned, his family shattered, and Max had lost yet another partner. The pain of losing his best friend the second time was unimaginable. And now, here he was at the funeral, surrounded by grieving officers. The ceremony proceeded quietly, interrupted only by the soft cries of Ethan's loved ones. But then, without warning, Max sprang to his feet, his nose pressed against the casket. He sniffed frantically before letting out a sudden, piercing bark. Then another, and another. He barked and barked, his tail stiff, his body trembling. Something was wrong. The dog refused to stop. Officers attempted to pull him back, but he resisted with all his strength. He pawed at the casket, his distressed whimpers turning into deafening howls. Murmurs spread among the crowd. What was Max sensing? After a moment of hesitation, despite the police chief's insistence to leave the casket untouched due to the condition of the body, the decision was made. The lid had to be opened. As soon as the casket was unlocked, Ethan's mother let out a blood-curdling scream. "That's not my son," she cried. Gasps filled the air. People shrieked in terror. The realization hit like a bolt of lightning. Something was terribly wrong. Max, as if sensing justice had been served, immediately stopped barking. His body relaxed, his tail lowered. It was as if he had accomplished his mission. The funeral was halted at once. Officers rushed to investigate, their minds racing. What had gone so horribly wrong? They needed answers, fast. It didn't take long before the truth was uncovered, and it was more shocking than anyone could have imagined. On the chaotic night of the shootout, 2 severely wounded officers had been transported to the hospital. One of them tragically passed away due to excessive blood loss, while the other, critically injured, was placed into an induced coma. But in the midst of the emergency, an unthinkable mistake occurred. The officer whose face was covered in bandages had been misidentified. The hospital staff had mistakenly assumed that Ethan Carter was the one who had died, while in reality, it was his partner who had succumbed to his injuries. No one had questioned the doctor's words that night. No formal identification had been conducted. It had been a heartbreaking yet preventable error. And now, the grieving families had to face the shocking truth. Ethan was alive. Weeks later, Ethan Carter finally regained consciousness. He was weak, confused, but alive. As he learned about the mix-up, waves of emotions crashed over him. Sorrow for his lost partner, anger at the mistake, but also deep gratitude. He had been given a second chance at life. When he was finally discharged from the hospital, his first visit was to the precinct. And there, waiting for him, was Max. The moment their eyes met, the dog let out a happy bark, his tail wagging furiously. Ethan knelt down, wrapping his arms around his loyal companion. "You saved me, buddy," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. From that day forward, Officer Ethan Carter and his devoted dog Max continued their journey together, bound by trust, love, and an unbreakable bond. See you soon.